maybe going off and on, but it's because you need to know the journalist we have lost. That's why we keep on bringing him on air. And secondly, his lawyer is here, who has been going up and down and maybe attending to calls even from abroad. And he has made sure that he follows up critically all what was happening with Wazizi, our colleague. And so he is here. He's a barrister at law, Ewule. You're highly welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, my brother.
I can understand how you feel now, given the death of Samuel Wazizi, that at one time you even had to shed tears. And given now that it is very sure that he is of late. Now, can you brief our audience how it transpired in a few minutes?
It is it's heartbroken because Samuel Wazizi was a friend before I represented him. So when I heard of the arrest of Samuel Wazizi, um, he called me. So when he called me, he said, "Barrister, come to Munya police station." They allowed him to call me, so he called me. So when I went there, I met him alive, strong. He said, "Barrister, up to today, that was like 2 days. He said, I'm never taking my statement. I'm here. I don't know what is happening." So I went and I met the commissioner and I said, "What is wrong up to now that I'm taking?" He said, "Okay, I'll take a statement today." And I told the commissioner that, "You know Wazizi, he's the man in town, and what is happening?" So the commissioner said, "Okay, we're going to see what to do." So he told me some conditions for Wazizi to be granted bail. So we were trying to see how we could fulfill these conditions. And he told me to come the next day. So the next day I went there and he said, "No, that the dynamics have changed because journalists have carried it and it's all on social media, that is out of his competence, and that Wazizi's statements have been taken, and the allegations levied against him is a contravention of the 2014 terrorism law, and that on that basis is more than his competence." I said, "Okay, if it's more than your competence that you cannot carry on a investigation, then you should transfer my client to a facility that can carry out this investigation." So he said, "Okay, Barrister, what you are saying is within the ambit of the law. So I'm going to transfer Wazizi to the judicial police because that is where he has competence." So that was on the 7th. So Wazizi was now to be transferred to the judicial police. And I'm doing this case free of charge. Nobody has paid me a dime. Wazizi does not have money. Even the conditions for bail, there was no money. You see, so I went there myself that day. That time my car was even there. I paid taxi. I went there. I was there the whole day. It's free of charge. So they said they were transferring him to the judicial police. So that day I went down to Munya police station. I met the commissioner, and the commissioner said, "Okay, they were going to transfer him by midday." So I left. I went to the judicial police and I met the commissioner of judicial police, and I pleaded. I said, "Please, is there no possibility that bail can be granted to Wazizi?" He said, "Wazizi have not even come before him, and I'm talking of bail. That okay, let us wait for him to first of all arrive." So I was a little bit disturbed. I don't know, it's just as if I knew that something was going to happen. Just as if I knew. I went and met the former DO of Moya, Kwam Okampo. I went to his office, and luckily for me, he granted me audience. And I told him that one of my friends has been arrested, and they are trying him under the 2014. They are indicting him under the 2014 law. That please, can something be done? That he has denied all the allegations levied against him. So the DO told me that there is separation of power. To be honest, that's what he told me. He told me that there's separation of power. That what I'm asking him is out of his competence. That is now in the hands of the judiciary. That the judiciary should do their work. That what where he's seen as is at the level of the Munya police, they want to transfer him to the judicial police. So, and he said okay. So I went back to the judicial police and I met the chief of judicial police. I was there till about 2 p.m. But this was not coming. So I went back the Munya police to the investigator who told me emphatically that he saw orders came to the commissioner that he should be transferred not to the judicial police, which is competent to carry on such investigation, but to the motorized 21st Infantry Battalion. So he said, Barrister, you can go there. I said, okay. So I went to the infantry, the motorized infantry brigade. Thank God, on going there, I went there with some Wazizi's colleagues. Derek Jato, Mula Moki, Madam Woods, a lot of them went there together. Mwapor. So when we went there, I said, I want to see the head of the establishment, the BIM. And when I went there, I was told that the man told me, okay, let us go. So when we're going, like 2 meters, he stopped again. And one other military man came and they had a small discussion, small chat, and they told us that lawyers are not allowed in the military facility, that we should go and wait for our client either in court or at judicial police. I tried to insist, and you know, in that area, you cannot really insist in a military base.
Yeah.
So I was just driven away. So I was feeling very frustrated. I went back to the chief of judicial police, and I expressed my frustration. I said, "What is happening? This military, they don't have the competence to carry out criminal investigation. The only organ that have the power to carry on criminal investigation, it is either the judicial police or, in cases of terrorism, the gendarmerie, legion. Those are the places that have competence." So the chief of judicial police told me that I just have to understand the times that we find ourselves. That because of the crisis, sometimes the military can collect suspects to exploit them to get information where separatists are found and all of that. So I was there with the other journalists. So he told me, please, Barrister, and he spoke to all of us that people should calm down. They should not be fear. He's going to be giving back to us for further investigation.
So by this period, the governor was aware, and the state council, all these offices were aware.
I don't want to involve the governor, because as what the DO told me, that there is separation of power, you have the judiciary, you have the executive, but you know that all those things is they call it window dressing. It's just a window smoke screen. But I want to say that maybe the governor at that time was not brief of the matter. But at that time, there was a lot of pressure on the media at that period. At that period, I was interviewed in BBC. And all of that. There was a lot of pressure. So so after that scenario, 2 days, it was not produced by. So the next day, I went to the office of the commandant of the BIM to meet him and explain to him. It's like I knew something was going to happen, because I went there and I met him. He told me he was going for a meeting. He sent me to meet his assistant. This is something I'm not telling anybody. I went and met his assistant with Derek Jato and the others.
Okay, Barrister Ewule, well, before I come back to you, gentlemen, let me come, because some people are complaining of the consistent inconsistency of maybe the journalists, you people, the defense council, and so for 10 months, and maybe the administration. Then why this sudden information that has taken people unaware?
Yes, well, I will still go with my story, but because of time, I'll get it. We filed the first severance copies on the 18th of August. 2019. I filed it on behalf of Wazizi. I was the first applicant and Wazizi was the second applicant. It was for the court, and the court dismissed it on some watery grounds that the section 585 is saying that either the detained person on another person, that two of us cannot be applicants, that I was not detained. So I said, okay, no problem. I took the document that I was dismissed, that the matter was dismissed, and I went and prepared it, clean all the loopholes, all the things that the court was saying that I have done. You understand? I went on now to do a fresh one. So I filed again on the 17th of November 2019.
It was for bail.
No, it was for habeas corpus is to produce the person detained either dead or alive.
Okay.
So that was what was happening. And up to today, the habeas corpus is still in court. I'll be going to court on Tuesday to get the final ruling of the court in the habeas corpus application. So I never knew that Wazizi was dead before God and before the entire people watching me. I did not know that Wazizi was dead.
So some people say
Tuesday,
some people say it's just a normal mafia between lawyers, the magistrate, and the administration.
No. The way I followed up this issue, the courts have done everything to frustrate me as far as this matter is concerned.
Okay.
The court has done everything in its power to frustrate me and the entire proceedings. But we have pushed on. Can you imagine that even the order of the court that Samuel Wazizi should be produced, it was not even served on me as the applicant. It was not served on me. We tried to press, we even filed an action. It was an application that should be served on me. It was this me. So you see the frustration, the court was trying to frustrate also. There is no link as.
Okay, so we'll be using the limit of our time now. While you take your breath, let me come to you, Mr. Njomo Siri, with all the information he has given, the difficulty from the council to maybe the administration, information not coming out. Who has the blame here?
Listen, Mambo Williams, before Barrister Ewule making his entry, I have said some things that I would like to repeat in his presence. The first thing is that the Bias regime does not have that devolution of power, that separation of power. So there are things that we should be able to speak and speak clearly. Secondly, Barrister Ewule's weight was weak. You heard it from the legal man himself saying that most of his petitions were cancelled on waterproof. That like it was people did not. I want to really say that the court did not take him serious. They thought it was a young man who was playing.
No, I was there with a very senior. No, please, I'll get you to. I was there with a very senior lawyer who was doing. I was just the applicant. Okay. The person who was doing the matter was Senior Barrister Nkeya, who has been a prosecutor. He has been a judge in the Gambia for more than 15 years. He has been a practicing lawyer for about 20 years.
I thought I was the one having the floor.
No. You cannot say that it was.
No, we're talking about a dead case. Please.
Okay, let him land while you defend.
Let's excuse me.
Okay, let him land. Then why you defend? Yes, please.
The Barrister Nkeya, how many times have I heard him on this case?
What are you talking about?
Barrister Ewule seated here.
What are you talking about?
Has gone on air so many times on Samuel Wazizi's case, crying that he is not hurt, especially by the court. Hardly have I ever known that behind this case was Barrister Nkeya that is being mentioned today. Are you getting me?
All the applications by the Nkeya has been there.
Sam, you permit me. I'm looking at the level of my own information.
Yes, go on.
You would really like to pardon me for my naivety, but I'm talking at the level of my own information.
And what I've gathered for 300 days, at least I kept on saying that 300 days is a long time to go.
Okay.
So on that basis, so the court diminished his appeal, and the resulting effect is what we have. But let us not really end there, because that is just the myopic part of the story.
Okay.
What bothers me is when they say they should keep the governor aside. I will keep saying that he is responsible.
No. Separation of power.
There's no separation of power. There have been cases.
Yeah.
There have been cases where a phone call from the governor can solve the issue. We are talking about a journalist. I don't know whether people want to go and investigate so many other things, but we are talking about somebody who was reporting news, who was helping to raise awareness, who was sensitizing people, even including the Anglophone crisis, for which he is falling. So on that basis, he was supposed to be protected even by the administration, because he served also their interests.
Okay. Let me come back to you. Is it wrong for a journalist to be in contact with maybe terrorists? Let me call it criminals. Is it in contact maybe for information, investigation, and so on by the law? Is it?
If you look at our 2014 terrorism law that we're talking about, the 2014 terrorism law is, if you look at those sections, it's saying that if you have any contact with terrorists, you can be held like an accessory or even a terrorist under our 2014 law. And that's why some of us, we are crying that law must be revised.
But Barrister Awule, with such a law, how do journalists get information? Because just like somebody said, from there, maybe a journalist gets into the camp of terrorists, get an information and blows it out that they are about to attack. It will help the government.
Yeah, but under our law, they say, Hans Kelsen said the law as it is. Under our law, you can look at the Muslim scholar. The Muslim scholar who was arrested. What's his name again?
Ibrahim.
The Muslim scholar was arrested. He was arrested and charged under the 2014 terrorism law because he went and had pictures with terrorists that from the Cameroon.
Means it is like saying that your law is saying that investigating journalism is cancelled.
That is what the law is saying, and that is what we are decrying. We are decrying it seriously. We are decrying it.
So in other words, I am banned from, because there's a case in the Northwest in Bafuda I want to go and investigate. So by the time I go there, I can be charged for terrorism.
That is the law. All of us, please, not before you take the microphone for me. Before you take the microphone for me, I should say it here, and all I tell you is to know that all of us here, we are potential terrorists under that 2014 law.
Okay.
Journalists marched the other day to the governor's office. All those journalists could have been arrested and tried for terrorism.
Yes.
Because the law is saying that if you go to a public servant office and you disturb, you can be tried for terrorism under the terror.
But there wasn't any disturbance.
No, by you going to his office under that law, you can be tried for terrorism. That is why you see people cried when that law was being passed and 14 that this law is not targeting the Boko Haram terrorists but Cameroonians.
Yes,
Mr. Mambo,
Doctor.
when you look, when the Anglophone crisis started, people marched with peace plan. Are we saying that when people march with peace plan, is that terrorism? Because there are issues. If you march, to be candid, I think that
under the law, it is a bad law. And that's why we are. If you march with peace plan, you can be charged for terrorism under that
government
2014
officials have been maybe going against the law.
Yeah, but you know it as a discretion of the prosecutor to charge you. It's at the discretion of the prosecutor to either charge you or not to charge you.
Okay. Before I continue, I want to say that such laws needs to be revised, Mr. Mwambo Williams, and I feel that in every country where there's justice, where there's separation of power, I think that people have the right to march out when there's injustice. And I think that you can see the case of America. When when he died, what happened? The Americans came out. So I feel that Cameroon must respect the rule of law. And if we have to respect the rule of law, we must respect humanity. We think that the issue of human rights is not highly respected in Cameroon. Many people are vulnerable. And if we continue with this law of 2014, many people will be vulnerable, Mr. Moderator. And I feel that looking at Samuel Wazizi's case, his case was not litigated in the court. And I think that they filed a lawsuit. And we cannot sit here and blame the barristers. They did their effort. It is the case of the judiciary. If we had that independent judiciary system, I feel that the military wouldn't have entered this case, Mr. Mwambo William. So we have to restructure our system. Our system of governance, I think that our institutions needs to be restructured so that other people should not influence the powers that is being bestowed. Because I think that if such cases happen again, it will not be nice, because I still feel that the journalists are the fourth arms of government, and they are the voices of the lay people. And if journalists are termed terrorists, I think that we need in the English law, you cannot see somebody guilty when you have not taken that person to court. And I feel that you cannot go to equity with dirty hands. If we continue like this, all our hands are dirty in this case. And I think that government at this juncture needs to revisit the 2014 law. Parliamentarians will be going to Parliament very soon. I think that these are issues that should be deliberated in Parliament so that we as Cameroonians should have a sense of belonging in our country, because that fear factor cannot change a country. Because I think that it is the right of the citizen to go out there and revolt, even when revolt and not destroy when they feel that things are not moving well.
Mr. Jomosiri.
Yeah, Mwambo Williams, permit me say having a contrary view does not make me a blamer.
That's why we call the program Cross Views.
I'm not blaming Barrister Ewule and the colleague. Instead, I should seize this opportunity and congratulate the young man at his age and see the braveness he's having. The whole world today, and there is no way today you will call Barrister Ewule somewhere and nobody will not refer it to a case. I think those are rare cases in the career of a lawyer that we should be able to appreciate, especially when we have him on set like this.
Could it be that they minimize his age?
I think we have gone past that because time is not on our way. Let us leap it forward.
It's not a matter of age. It's a governance.
Good. It's a governance issue. Now, I wanted to talk about the prevailing context. Two laws have been quoted here that is important to us to revisit. The terrorism law that we have overlapped on it came in a particular context. Okay, when you see the 2012 economic crisis, after the government injected a lot of experts that came from Europe into the system that were supposed to revamp the economy, but they came in, started embezzling money, and some of the technocrats that were in the system started going out of the government. The government started foreseeing that the next election that will come up might have a lot of challenges. And so the terrorism law came in to limit people's ability, to limit freedom of expression. At 2018, from 2018, October 7, 2018 till now, we have had a lot of opportunity to discuss over this law, including the 1990 law, liberty laws. So I think we should not overlevel it, because it is known that all those laws has been put in place to stop people, to reduce the freedom of expression. But now, to round over the case, because I'm sure that is where you are leading to, having congratulated Barrister Ewule, I want to frown sincerely on those who on two sides collapse, some of the lawyers, some of the journalists, that in this case they have not played frank, genuine. They have not been genuine in their approach. Some people are shouting and blowing and shouting. You are following them without knowing that they are being chipped. their money, they are financed for what they are doing. And so we have to be very selective in the kind of appreciation we send out there. Secondly, there are some people who are buying this case to position themselves for future opportunities. We should be able again to select them and chase them out of the game. This is a dead case that has exposed the government look on young people. Because I want to take the case of Ewule again. As the legal counsel there, I believe that his authority was not respected. I believe that his personality was not considered to the extent that it should be. And it is not his problem. It is a problem of the judiciary system. Okay. He has said in so many platforms, I follow him with a lot of enthusiasm, that the way the justice responded to him, he's not satisfied. Even by Sakia did said so. And now, when a minister in the temple is decrying like this, what become of the layman? And,
Mr. Moderator, before you go to our learned barrister here, please, I'll just be brief. Before you go to our learned barrister here, there's one thing I want to say here. We have to be clear. Yeah. If you cannot see a learned barrister who have gone to school, who have gone to the bar school for years, and then you see him being victimized by a military man. So there are things in this country that our laws, the jungle, I don't know, there's the draconian measures now are making some of the military people in uniform to feel very superior. You cannot see learned gentlemen who have gone to school and they are protecting the rights of other citizens, and they are being seen in the neighborhood, like what is happening with this COVID-19. You go to the neighborhoods, you see how youngsters, the young ones who are still vulnerable, they don't have students who don't have food to eat. Instead, for the military educating them on how to put even a face mask, they're exploiting and they are victimizing people. So the truth is that I'm going out of that topic, but the issue is that we must respect all the organs of government.
Dr. Obusi Ene.
Yes.
Is it the law on paper that has problem, or those who are applying the law?
The law on paper, at times some of the laws are not even appropriate. But Cameroon have some good laws. But I feel that the issue of implementation also is a problem. But laws like the terrorism laws needs to be revised.
Okay. Why you answer that? Because you are in the field. Is it the law on paper or those who are applying the law that is a problem? Because we will just be summarizing just 1 minute each. Then I would like you to tell us the way forward now after this.
Okay, it is two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
The first thing is the law on paper is what guides the implementation of the law. The law on paper, it is what guides the implementation of the law. Because if our law talks of real independence of the judiciary,
yes,
they will be independent of the judiciary. So you see that the law itself has a problem. If the 2014 terrorism law, yes, was in such a way that could guarantee the right of citizens in Cameroon, and it was out to hold just real terrorists, then that would be but you see that it is two sides of the same coin. We have a problem with our law, and we have the people implementing the law. I have studied in Nigeria, and I'm a practicing lawyer in Nigeria. Okay. You see a clear separation of power. The way forward now is we're asking this afternoon. The head of state had an audience with the French ambassador, and the French ambassador brought out this Wazizi case. It's a boiling matter, and the head of state he said there will be an independent investigation. We are calling for an independent investigation into the circumstances surrounding the death of our client.
Maybe autopsy to be done.
An independent investigation from when he was arrested. We want to see the sheets, the police sheets, the procès verbal as they call it. We want to see what happened to him at the level of the beam. We want to see what happened in him at the level of Yaoundé. We want to see what happened in him at the level of, we want to see even the court action. How was it managed? We want to see what happened to him at the level of the hospital that he died. We want to even see an autopsy of the corpse. At the end of the day, we want the corpse to be handed to the family. I spoke to the family this evening, had an audience with all the members of the family. We went there to express our condolences. We are asking for an independent investigation and want the corpse to be handed to the family at the end of the day.
Yes, Dr. Busienes.
Yes, Mr. Mojoto, let me add something.
Yeah.
I want to be very serious here, and I want us to be very serious. And the issue here is that we need, the president might be saying for an individual or for an investigation, but when independent investigation, sorry, but when you look at the Ngabu incident, the facts were brought to the government. What has happened with those people who were involved? So we want I think that our government should be very, very serious in implementing decisions that are being taken after such incidents, so that they should not happen again, because the family are really grieving. The family is really in pain. And if you look at this case, you understand that the government cannot say that the family was aware. And to me, personally, analyzing here, I think that if the family was aware, the lawyers would be aware.
Of course.
That's the truth. We should be very honest.
Mr. Njomo Sivi.
Yes, Mambo Williams.
We are
The way forward, the first thing as a barrister, I just want to join my voice as a seconder to barrister to call on the administration. I don't finally know how to dissociate whether it's the government to produce all the justification and the cops, or is the judiciary, but they should understand themselves. Now, I will not be naive to think that Christophe Giroux, the French ambassador that went to talk with Mr. Biya, his friend, they were talking about Samuel Wazizi. You know, diplomacy have this cunning attitude that when they come to the press, they say what is making wave, and you think that was actually the content of their discussion. Mr. Biya has known this case for 300 days. What has happened? If you see Governor Okala Bilai coming on and washing his hand for something he's supposed to take responsibility, Mr. Biya was supposed to comment, but on that one. Now, I don't want to be naive to think that is what they were talking about. I instead want to think that our cases should be treated by us. And so the first thing I'm calling is the governor. He should be able to take another release and publicly apologize to the people of Boya. They took one of our journalists, claimed that he was a terrorist. He first of all has to apologize because all that happened in his washed eyes. Secondly, they should produce evidence that actually what has been produced by their commander is verifiable. If not, they will have to face human rights charges, because that is a dead case, that is a fourth estate, that is a mic that has been broken, that is so many things, that is a life that has been shattered, that is a family that has been. If you want to see the repercussion on the society, you will see that there are a lot of elements of this injustice that need to be balanced.
And just to end, Wazizi has a son, has a daughter. The wife of Wazizi, the girlfriend that he had a daughter, died 3 months ago out of frustration. Out of frustration, the girl and Wazizi's child now is an orphan. These are some pains that if I tell you what I'm going through, you will not understand, because I am been on this case. Maybe people are his colleagues, people are just, but I have been on this case for 300 days, and I've been following it up every day. I go to court every month, like 2-3 times. I write submissions. I go there. Mr. Njomo Sivi can testify. Wazizi's child is an orphan. He's an orphan, and it's time for us to see how we can help that child to go. And our son Wazizi's brother today, everybody is in tears.
Dear viewers, it was very important to take time to pay homage to our colleague Wazizi, because he worked here, he started with this place and made it to grow. And so it wasn't wrong for we to give this time for him. We want to say, Barrister Ewule, as far as this is concerned, we want to thank you so very much as a journalist who know you've been standing as a journalist, I am appreciating because we know we've been following you up. You'll be standing for him until his death. So before we end on this first topic, before we get to the next, can I say we'll have a minute of silence for Wazizi and the wife. So we say, may the soul of Samuel Wazizi rest in the bosom of the Lord, and may humanity that surrounds the death of Wazizi go and sin no more. Amen. Dear viewers, we shall be going to the second topic. We shall just be doing it very briefly because it was important to talk about Wazizi. And we want to appeal to you, the viewers, that we understand the situation. Maybe from next edition, next week, those who think that they would like to meet the family of late Wazizi to do something special for the child, because this is period for school and maybe some other responsibilities, you can start getting prepared to maybe say, pay condolence to the family. We'll take some break. When we come back, then we'll be summarizing with the other topics we have briefly.